Hello, hello. Ooh, sorry, I just kicked over a can that was right near my foot. Hello,
Officially,
and
good
welcome
afternoon.
to the CoachRx Podcast Network Live. I am here with David. How you doing, David?
I'm good.
Oh, it looks like I'm having a little bit of a delay. I don't know if it's me or you. Do you feel like you're seamless?
I'm hearing you right away. Let's see, turn the
Oh,
audio
good.
on and off.
That's a little better. Maybe it was just
Are you
more of
still
a
getting a
blur.
lag on my end?
A little bit like it's like pixelated and
Oh,
kind
okay.
of like, but no, not a big deal. How was your morning? You had some learning for
Okay.
breakfast?
I had learning for breakfast after some eggs. Yeah, it's been kind of cool. So I had two consult calls that bookended the OPEX method today. So it was like implementation of what I did in the method last week, kind of bookending the new learnings from today, which is kind of a way to have morning start.
Amazing. Did you do anything different out of the norm from your typical consultations?
Well, honestly, doing consultations is a bit out of the norm for me. I have not been very good at doing regular consultations with clients. I do weekly readiness check-ins, just like questionnaires in the app for my clients. Um, and then it's more of like, you always have the option to schedule a call if you need one. And I have a couple clients who consistently we chat once a month, and then others who we really never do that. Um, so putting more of like a regularly scheduled consult into practice. Part of the reason I didn't do it was because I just didn't have a system or a framework for that consultation. So it always just felt like a little unnecessary to, book this half an hour, talk for 6 minutes, and be like, "Are we good? Yeah, okay, that's it." But these two today were like super insightful, which was really nice.
And these were initial consultations, or they were more like a monthly check-in type?
Ongoing. So yeah, one he just finished up his first month with me, so we did a consult. The timing was great. He started really hiring me to try and get some really significant back pain under control. And between the program and then a couple other uh, conservative interventions, he's decided to do. He's feeling amazing. Like he's shocked by how much better he's feeling. So it's really like, okay, do we need to change some goals, because it's really been almost like rehab for the first 4 weeks, and now I think we can basically make it like 80% training, and then what does that really look like for you right now? What do you want to pursue from that standpoint? And then the other woman is she's coming at the end of 2 months with me, so we've had like a couple informal calls, and then she's getting to the end of like a long kind of foundational block of programming. So getting her input on, what she would like to see more of, what exercise has meant for her outside of the gym after these first 8 weeks. It was really nice to hear that from her.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like every coaches are so flexible about it. Like some coaches I know like to do, depending on their client roster, weekly, some like to do monthly, some are more just as needed. So I don't, I think from an OPEX method perspective, the standard is sort of like monthly consultation just from alignment, buy-in, continued relationship development. But I know that a lot of people execute it in different ways. For speaking on the client side, I always found it super helpful just because you have that moment to like obviously communicating over digital comments and weekly check-ins and in the forums can be efficient, but sometimes it's just things come out in a consult that you aren't even expecting to reveal to the coach. And I always found it so interesting, like the questions that were asked and how it would just prompt a response that maybe I wasn't even thinking about communicating. Something that's like, oh yeah, you're right, I didn't really log the way that I was tweaking this program on a regular basis to like modify it to meet my needs, where I could have just communicated that, but I didn't even think about it. And like now in this conversation, it came up for us. And then you're going to ask me something
Mm-hmm.
that's going to make me reflect on it and might even pursue a whole nother line of like programming changes.
Yeah, stuff like that is super valuable. You could record the video, but then it's still, without your context, your voice telling me why you're doing things. It's just me interpreting the movement. And one thing that was interesting, with this client, one of her goals, looking back at her intake form before doing the consultation call, was she wanted it to be easier for her to, one, get up and down off the ground. She's like 51, breast cancer survivor, had like a longer period of like kind of detraining than she's ever had in her whole life, and then broke her hand, just like all this stuff. Right? She wanted to be able to get up and down off the ground easier so that she could get up and down off the ground while holding on to her grandson. And so that's like I'm not programming specifically that, but getting her feedback on, how has this more general foundational training block translated to something really specific, like getting up and down off the ground while holding your grandson in one hand. And it's like it's improved. And so without having to dedicate, I'm not trying to mimic that via exercise, but because it's a well-rounded training program, it's cool for me, the coach, to hear, yeah, like it's accomplishing. I'm not just doing physio ball hamstring curls, whereas I couldn't do those 6 weeks ago. And now I'm like, how do I make these harder? Like, that's awesome. What's way more awesome is getting up and down off the ground confidently without feeling like you're going to, drop your grandson or fall on top of him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm aligned with this specific client situation. Most of the interesting exercise facts that you've been sharing in the past several weeks have been very longevity focused. Has that just been the frame of mind that you've been in because of some of these client interactions, or share a little bit about how you've gone down the path of like articulating interesting exercise facts from that perspective?
Yeah. So about half of my clinical career was spent in geriatrics. So it was spent in skilled nursing, mostly with people 65 to 105. I had this really interesting 2-week period in California where my youngest client was 94 and my oldest was 103 for like 2 straight weeks in the assisted living facility where I worked, which is amazing. So I'm just like I feel like I'm a big advocate for the impact we can have as fitness professionals on older clients. And it's just this, I don't think it's talked about enough. It's not the sexiest line of work. I'll say that as cool as I'm sure it is to help someone, shave a tenth of a second off their 40 time, I cannot imagine that being more fulfilling than having a 65-year-old patient come back from vacation and be like, it was easier to like carry my grandkids around, and like I didn't have to take breaks from playing with them because my back didn't hurt the way it has for years. Like I just think like that's so cool. And so that was on my mind. A handful of my in-person clients right now are 60, 75, and they're telling me these like amazing stories about the things they're able to do that they haven't been able to do for a decade, and it's been like 2 or 3 months together. And so the longevity side is something I've been talking to my students at MTI about a lot. It's something that just in general, because of my background, I think about a lot. And so, yeah, I decided to kind of do like a 30-day theme with this exercise fact content, all about the impact that we as fitness professionals can have on older clientele.
I love that. You shared one, and I don't remember the exact stat. Maybe you'll remember it off the top of your head. And I'm going to let Brandon join us because why not? He's here early. But you had shared one stat around how many hours or how much time exercising a week does an older adult need to improve overall lifestyle? Am I quoting that correctly, or do you
Mm-hmm.
remember the stat that you shared?
It was really how much exercise, how much physical activity does an older adult need to have an impact on their subjective quality of life? And it was 150 minutes
150
a week.
minutes a week.
So 22 minutes a day, roughly, to have a significant positive, their self-reported quality of life. So they are saying my life is better.
I love that. And that
Not
is
much.
any 20 minutes, 22 minutes of any movement during the day, or resistance training specifically, or in general?
Yeah, basically. No, it wouldn't be resistance training specifically. This is just kind of looking at general physical activity. which could be a walk, it could be a bike ride, it could be, somewhat vigorous yard work where you're kind of just consistently moving. It could be broken up into 5-minute bouts throughout the day. It's pretty general. So just looking at, were you physically active for 150 minutes or more this week, or less than 150 minutes this week? And then I can't remember exact timeline in terms of that, or actually it might have just been more like survey data of, people who reported in general having more activity also reported higher quality of life than people. I don't think it was an intervention based study. I think it was more like observational. Here's the correlation we see over like a large population or in multiple study reviews.
That's awesome. Brandon, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
What's up?
You're here early, so I just thought maybe the three of us could chat for a minute. I know because you've obviously gone through CCP. David is going through this new version of CCP while he's also teaching like 2 other courses. So kind of comparing and contrasting to all the things that he's already learned and knows, and kind of just getting into the OPEX method and perspective. So today last week we focused on coach-client relationship as the main themes and discussion. And this week we were focusing on assessment. So we just started talking about that. And then also David's been on a kick of sharing really interesting exercise facts that are very longevity focused and helping an aging population just move better, feel better. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Does that spark anything for you?
Yeah. What's that?
Does that spark anything for you? Just remembering kind of that period of time when you were going through CCP from assessment and.
I went through CCP. It was a long time ago now. Probably like 2017 or 2018. Because I remember like as soon as I opened my first gym, I had been like eyeing the CCP for like a long time, and I was I had done my CrossFit level 1, and then the CCP was like the next big one, but I was like a little bit taken aback by the price tag at the beginning, and I was like, oh, okay, well, like this is going to be an investment for me, and like I wanted to do it, and I like to tell, like if I went back in time to tell myself, I would have spent it 100 times. Like I wouldn't have even thought twice, because it really like gave me a lot of confidence, especially in everything that was like kind of going on, because I had just started coaching full time. I had just started doing group stuff. I had just started kind of having those, initial conversations with like personal clients, and I had just gotten out of school, and I'd like just graduated with my biology degree, and I kind of felt like, damn, I want to coach, but like I don't think that helped me at all with like coaching, and didn't really give me any insight into coaching, if I'm being completely honest. It kind of left me with more questions than anything else. And the CCP was probably the biggest thing for me outside of just like training to get me in that direction. Like I felt like I don't think I think like the CCP set me up to feel like the most confident in that time. Like I don't think had I not taken that, I wouldn't have felt as confident stepping into those conversations, kind of venturing into some of the different things that I learned. I think like there's still things I use today, like to this very day, that I go back to from the CCP, whether it be like the the aerobic progressions, or just some of the concepts of like the the BLGs, right?
Basic lifestyle guidelines,
things like that. That again, they've just always been with me, and I've like evolved over time with those, but those kind of always stayed the same, and it's helped me kind of repurpose what I do, and repurpose like myself as a coach for more like long-term stuff, not just like a short-term like spark of coaching. Because I think a lot of these other courses are great in a lot of ways, but I really think like CCP was the one that taught me like, okay, like, yeah, there's all this information, but here's also like how you coach. Here's how you like present programming. Here's how you write programming. Here's how you, little things that all these other things are diving into, like anatomy and physiology and whatnot. And that's important. But I also think a lot of these other details of like actually being a coach, and CCP being like the first one that got me in the mindset of like, got me in the mindset of a career as a coach, I think was the biggest thing for me. And that was, I would say that was, you're going to get a lot from it. So
Well, and he's
I mean, if
also
you're going on
you're
like 7 or 8 years, right? 7 or 8 years of coaching, it sounds like you made it a career, which is rare.
Yeah, and I think, like I said,
It's rare
I don't
for people to
know
make
that
it
it would
like
have
a
been possible.
real career out of this.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know that would have been possible. I mean, obviously it could have been possible, but like it was a lot easier with CCP, and I think like learning that right away got me ready for like the steps I needed to take because I kind of like you know uh when I took that, that's when literally felt like I took like the next step, and like I said, I was just more confident. I understood a lot more. I was able to kind of look at programming and be like, oh, okay, well, like this should be in there, in this capacity, this many times a week. uh like I think one of my favorite parts was in the old, I don't know, obviously the new one, but like the old one was basically like everything was written out, and then you watch the videos with it and you can kind of like go at your own pace. And you guys had written out like, what does tempo look like, what's the purpose of it, what is the beginner level tempo, what's the intermediate, what's the advanced, um what's it look like for the strength continuum, what's it look like at the beginning to competition phase. Like all of that was really interesting, and kind of helped me organize a lot of that stuff because I think a lot of it now that I've learned as I've gone is a lot simpler for me to digest from like the CCP.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, oh, I was going to say, speaking of like being reflective, you did an episode that launched today that was all
Yes.
around like your annual
Yearly
assessment,
coaching audit. Yes.
which David's in a very reflective state of mind too, as he's
End of
been
the
like
year,
just
everybody
like
is, right?
end of the year, right? So share a little bit about what you are suggesting that coaches do as an annual audit, and then maybe we can chat about that.
Yeah, well, I think like the biggest thing in the coaching audit, I think a lot of people base success off of income, which is obviously important. And I think, if you want to make it a career, you got to get paid enough to support your life for it. But I also think actually sitting down and like auditing again your coaching style, the way you, even down to like when I deliver programs, how I deliver programs, when I reach out to my clients, are they enjoying it, do they like to be around me, because there's I, there might be people who are getting results but they like don't want to be around you, is a whole different scenario. It's like you want to build relationships with people, you want to also have like a good life, you want to enjoy things, you want to have things outside of work that help you recharge to get better at work, or coaching. And I think one of the biggest things that I like talked about in the podcast was just finding, you know, ways to create like that. I think we talked about it maybe like a couple weeks ago, the last time I was on with you, but that best year yet. So like
Oh
kind of
yeah.
that same idea for like fitness, where it's like, what were your wins as a coach? And like if you actually go through and actually see what your wins were, half of them probably weren't financial. They're great that go along with it. Like maybe you had your best year or your best months or whatever. I just remember like for myself, when I've had my best years monetarily as a coach, they weren't necessarily my best, like my most fulfilling years. And I think that's where I kind of started to see like, wow, all right, I had my best month and I was like, that was exhausting. And, depending on where you live, your best month might not even be enough to pay your bills sometimes. So it's just like, again, not to disregard the financial stuff, but you got to find ways as a coach to continue to grow outside of like just the paycheck you're getting from it. And I think that's enjoying the process. Are you getting better at programming? Are you challenging yourself, right? Like maybe you've just worked with powerlifters your whole entire life and that's a great niche, but like have you ever stepped outside and gone to like a CrossFit class, or have you ever done a run, or have you challenged yourself in any way for the year? Because I think as coaches, we kind of get stuck in our own process. And I see this too much with locally people where, you know, they got a full client list and then they're not even training, or they're not taking care of themselves, or they're not learning from other people around them. Like I just did a little mentor thing with Sam because I wanted to learn a little bit more about CrossFit programming, and it was awesome. Like I haven't felt, I wouldn't say that's stupid, but like I haven't felt that like lost diving into some stuff in a long time. And I needed it. I needed a little like push to say, yeah, you can, there's something here for you to dive deeper into. Right. And that's where I kind of started talking about with Jerry was, what are those areas as a coach that you can look to that aren't income to audit. Right. And I think as a lot of coaches dive into that, like they're gonna take away a lot of stuff so that in the new year you can start to look at that when a client comes in, like, hey, there is income from this client, but like, am I getting anything else from this? Are they fulfilling me as a something I want to learn? You know, are they fulfilling me as a person? Sometimes there's just people that are great to be around, and they're fun clients, right? And that's a big thing to understand. Like, who are you trying to take in when you are working with people? Like, who are your best clients right now? And that's something I didn't do for a really, really long time until as of like the last few years, where I was like kind of just having clients, and you're looking around, you're like, oh well, I would want like 10 of that one. And it's like, how do I get 10 of that client? Right. But you have to actually say, like, what do they do well? They show up, they have a smile on their face. When you ask them something, they do it. If they have a question, they ask it. If they go through a tough time, they tell you. And there's little things you have to kind of see where it's like, okay, well, now I can start to ask these questions when I sit down with a new client, where it's like, hey, yeah, maybe they have the money, but it's like, if they have the money and they do none of that other stuff, that's going to be a terrible experience. And then as a coach, if you have people who just don't care about like the training, that's a reflection on your training, whether it be because of you or not. And then everything kind of like spirals from there. So I think it's really important to find those pieces outside of the money you bring in. And that's kind of what the whole episode was about. Probably just gave you the whole episode right there. Still go watch it.
David, I didn't want to jump in. Do you want to share anything? Did that spark anything for you?
Well, I mean, the thing that popped off the most to me was, do the clients like to be around you? And then you kind of circled back at the end to, do you like to be around the client? And, early in your coaching career, right, if you're just trying to make it, there's always going to be a little bit of like, I need you to pay me. You aren't my ideal client. In fact, I actually wish you weren't coming in, but at the same time, I definitely don't want to lose you because you're 20% of my net income this month. And then over time, right, like hopefully that gets to shift. But I like that a lot, like the coaching audit, because there are 100% like seasons of business going well, personal fitness has suffered because of that. Like there are adjustments that can be made so that the business does not suffer, and I can create more time for fitness, right? Is there scheduling stuff I can change? Are there priorities I need to move around? Am I wasting time, and where and why? I've talked to Kandace a couple times over the course of this year about how like making learning a priority as a coach, I think is really important. And for a lot of years, I was teaching the same thing, 15 weekends a year. And so like the time I would have maybe had to dedicate to learning on my own was just meant like refining this one area of education and then just delivering that. And it was almost like learning how to be a better educator as opposed to learning how to be a better coach. And then this year I've had more of an opportunity to like learn how to be a better coach, right? Which then I think gives you an opportunity to improve your financial situation potentially, because if you run your own business, like what better time to give yourself a raise than when you just got smarter, right? You became a better coach, therefore you are more valuable. You create better results, your prices should go up. The time commitment remains the same. The total income is better. Then all of a sudden you have more time to learn. And it's just like now you're in this like beautiful cycle of like, I'm becoming more valuable, therefore I'm generating more value, therefore I can ask for more, right? I can change my time commitments around a little bit without feeling like I'm going to suffer financially or my family's going to suffer financially. And so there's this, I don't know, I think since I'm in a position where I'm educating people who are aspiring coaches right now, like who have never trained anyone or learning to train, like I cannot emphasize enough, like competence equals confidence as a coach. Like coming out of undergrad, studying exercise science, like you said, biology. I think those are 4-year degrees. A lot of trainers have like a 2-week certification, but we all come out with kind of the same problem, which is like, all this stuff, all these tests, all this stuff to look for. And then it's like, but then what do I do with it? Right. I did these tests on my client. I figured out, like from today's OPEX method, it's like I figured out how many total calories they burned in 10 minutes on the assault bike.
Mhm.
Now what?
Yeah.
Right. I'm glad I knew how to do that test. I don't know how to tell my client what that means. I don't know what it means. And therefore, I certainly don't know what I'm going to program on the assault bike next week. What question do I even ask to figure out how to begin to think about that? And so, yeah, that's the value of continuing education, and especially the value of courses that give like frameworks and systems, because a lot of times like that's what the new coaches, that's what a lot of coaches, right? You learn any new thing, and the biggest missing link is like, what is the actionable step I take to put this new knowledge to use?
Mhm.
And so having like one or two things in your back pocket that teach you multiple systems, like kind of what you're saying, you're 8 years in, but as you've learned other stuff, the fact that you have a CCP foundation is like, oh, I know where to plug that in.
Yeah.
Like that just enhances this thing I already know, right? That's like a new lens that like sharpens my focus of this thing I could already see pretty clearly. And now it's like, now I see even more. So that's just so valuable.
Yeah, and I think like one of the other things too I talked about a little bit in there was like reflecting on not just like what you're doing, but information you have. Like, because I think sometimes we read a book, for example, or we watch a video and it's like, oh, okay, I read it. On to the next thing, right? And I think that a lot of the time with that stuff, if you just go back, go through the book again a couple years later, or like even a year later, you're going to take in new stuff. You're going to have different perspectives. You're going to have different clients. Like this little book right here, I'm about to go through again. This one, Little Black Book of Training Wisdom. I went through it once, but like now's a great time to go through this again and just like see what I take away from it this time. I highlighted in yellow. This time I'll highlight in blue maybe, and I'll just kind of go through and see what I take away from it. There's even other books that I have that I haven't gone through in like a couple years, and it's just like, all right, now's a great time to just go through that stuff, take what I can, because I think nowadays like everybody's got a book or everybody's got something, but you can just kind of go back and go through some of like the best of the best and take stuff away consistently because your mindset's changed. I've been diving into endurance training a lot more personally, and then like in regards to learning it. So there's some stuff on I've been learning there through some like either new books or old studies or papers or whatnot. Some like interesting concepts about motivation and how like endurance basically gets shifted by like your perceived effort or like what you perceive as being possible or impossible, and that like completely changes the output that you're able to give to an exercise, where it's like a lot of people in the beginning or for a long time are like, oh well, if you can't complete a task you're not fit enough. But sometimes it's a mental game where it's like, hey, this person doesn't believe they can complete it, or they're looking at the risk to reward ratio and seeing that like there's more risk than there is reward. So it's like, I'm not going to push as hard to get that. And this is like an actual thing that's coming into light about endurance that, because I think, not to dive into the details of it, but like there's a lot out there that you can learn. But I also think like, David said, sometimes you, what I'd call, or I've heard it called like information hoarding, just kind of like take everything you put in your head. And then you're like, oh, I got all this information, and someone's like, use it. And you're like, I don't know what to do with it. So, I've tried to be better
Yeah.
about using it, be like that cat lady on Hoarders, except it's just squat information.
So this is an interesting
Yeah.
fact I'll
The
share
world's
with
leading
you.
expert on squats who's never helped anyone squat.
Exactly.
This is an interesting fact that I'll share with you guys. We have not like shared this publicly. So first time we were reviewing, because we just released the Lifestyle RX with the health data integration. We were just reviewing the volume of clients that are connecting devices. It's like they're averaging 1.2 devices per person that they're connecting with all the options they have to connect. But overwhelmingly, at the top of the list is Garmin. And I
Yeah.
don't think any of us were expecting that to be like the most connected device, which says a lot about the coaches on the platform, the clients that they're using, and how they're influenced right now by what's happening in fitness culture with just high rocks and endurance sports being like the trend. But I don't know. I thought that was so interesting that many people were connecting Garmin devices, meaning they're probably running a lot or doing a lot more of aerobic and endurance sports. Do you guys think that that's also interesting, considering that's like Apple Health or Aura, Whoop.
I was gonna say, yeah, same.
I got a Garmin on right now.
I'm definitely surprised. Yeah, I have a Garmin watch on, but yeah, I'm surprised. I would have bet Whoop and or a Ring.
Listen, I don't know if anybody from
Or
Both
Whoop
just
of
like
those
listens
Apple
to
are
this,
Health.
super top, but Garmin
or if
beat
you
them.
guys know anybody from Whoop, if they just put a clock on there, like it would be fine. Like just put a clock on the Whoop strap. That's all I'm asking. But I don't. I think. I think there's two things. I think the Garmin is very simple.
Somebody
I
at
think
Fitbit's sitting there and be like, "We dare you. We dare you to put a
literally,
clock on
but it's
that
just
thing
like
because
I don't
that's a
know. But
Fitbit.
anyways,
We're gonna
they
sue the
just
shit out of
refuse
you."
to.
Yeah.
But I think the Garmin is very simple. I think obviously it's like a watch. It doesn't really look like anything much. And I think sometimes with the Whoop and the Aura Ring, because I've had, you know, unfortunately, I've had all three on at once at one point in my life just to kind of test it and see. I had an Aura Ring, I had the Whoop strap, and then I had an Apple Watch at the time, and it's just like a lot. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people, the Whoop to me is like a great short term thing where it's like, hey, I want to gain some insight on some stuff. But after a while, it's just kind of like the same thing over and over again. With the Garmin, it's just like if you run, you get the running. The GPS on this is great. There's a lot of like running aspects to it, but personally, like the Garmin to me has been the most enjoyable because it's not so much data in my face. It's like if I want to go see it, I can see it, but it's just like at the end of the day, it's a watch that I can run with. Um, and I think the Garmin app could be better, but it's good, and I think it shows like running is really big right now, and I think Garmin is obviously at the top of that, and then obviously having that for CoachRx is going to be huge because I think it's just starting really. I know it's like booming at the moment, but I do think endurance sports and I think the physique that people are chasing and like the fitness goals that people are chasing are changing a lot because I think uh, what used to be like the power building, um, bodybuilding background where like people just want to get huge. I do think a lot of people just want to get like lean and fit, I guess we could call it. So I think there's a big shift that's already been happening. That's going to happen even more. And running is just simple. I think just running is just very easy. It's just like you just buy a pair of shoes. You can do it whenever, wherever, no matter if you're on vacation, if you're at work, like you can do it wherever. So I think having that integration for CoachRx is probably one of the best things because you know I don't know like who else has it or what other what would you call them, programming platforms might have it, but I know with what you guys have, it's been smooth so far.
Yeah. Something that I was thinking about when
I'm
we
gonna
first
sign off,
were.
but
Oh, you got to go, David.
see you guys soon. Yeah,
Thank you so much. Have a
Later.
great week.
You too.
Something that I was thinking about when we first released this was just obviously the transparency factor, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
even if it was not intended to be dishonest, but like marking a prescription complete when you maybe sort of completed it, right? Or
Yeah.
just don't want to feel the guilt of having it unchecked, whatever it is. But now, if devices are logging and coaches seeing like actual data, that transparency is more clear, which then enables you to have better coaching conversations and
Yeah.
get to the root of why progress might not be happening much quicker. So that's something that's also interesting to think about, which we're starting to play with, is when you've prescribed something like an aerobic progression or something that is supposed to elicit a specific aerobic stimulus, having the data also be visualized in connection with that prescription
Yeah.
so that you can see like, was it executed with the right intent?
Mhm. Yeah.
Which
I think that's
I don't
cool.
think
Yeah.
anyone's doing that.
No, I think, like I said, I think a lot of these places maybe don't, because like I said, I don't know what their goals are, but I think having that integration for a coach is huge. And there's been a lot of things for me that I've had people who having that sort of thing would be really helpful, but they just don't want to deal with it or see it or have to like look at it. And I think with this type of integration, it kind of can eliminate that like third or that kind of connection point where it's like, hey, I can see it, but you don't have to look at it and I can make adjustments from there. Because I think, like I said, I've had athletes, I've had, clients who are just like, this is just a lot for me. I don't want to see, whatever it might be when I wake up and saying that I didn't rest. Cause then it's like, well, if I feel good, then I'm going to feel like shit. And it's like, or sorry, feel bad. But and I also think it's a lot too, where it's like, hey, if I see it, then I can make the adjustment as a coach and don't even have to mention anything. It's just like, hey, listen, we're gonna do this, but I swapped this today, or I don't even have to say anything because if I write it and I tell them that's what we're gonna do. You know what I mean? Um, so I think it saves both sides, and I think it kind of creates a better relationship because then if you can see that stuff beforehand, you can give the client a better program that's gonna put them in a better position. They're gonna feel better, and everything's gonna kind of build on itself.
Yeah, totally. Well, awesome. Is there anything from the chat that you and Jerry had on the coaching audit that's worth sharing with anyone, or do you think you covered all those things?
I think I covered most of it. Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway was just like, give yourself an opportunity to like, even if it like I start usually in November, and I just start reflecting on the year personally, for the business, for myself as a coach, and give yourself time to like work through it. Get that in front of you earlier. The earlier the better, right? Because holidays get crazy, and before you know it, it's January 1st. So like, November 1st, even like just have that stuff out in front of you on your desk, on a whiteboard, on your wall, like wherever you kind of like organize stuff. Just start looking at it, thinking about it. Like, what were the pieces that you did well? And then what are the things you wish you did better? What are some goals for 26? You know, uh, we actually in the Coach Connect, we also kind of talked about this a little bit too, but breaking down some of the things into the new year of like the 5 F's, which is family, finance, fun, focus, and family, fitness, finance, focus, and did I say fun? Maybe that was it.
Fun. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think that's
fun.
what you said last time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like those 5 are just huge, and like kind of taking those not only in the coaching space, but obviously personally. But yeah, I would say that's it. Like just do it as soon as possible. Like get started so that like there's momentum built and you're not waiting until like December 27th and you have 3 days to kind of go through it. Some people work better that way. Uh, and I definitely like finalize it through like that last week. But I definitely have started. I felt better as I thought about it more ending the year. So like the last like 6 to 8 weeks of the year and giving myself an opportunity to like, because sometimes, when you just sit down, there's things you forget. Like it's like, hey, oh wow, like, or things didn't happen yet, where it's like, what are the things I've accomplished this year? And you're kind of going through and you sit down for an hour and you leave out like 4 or 5 things, where it's like across the week you have a conversation. It's like, oh, I did forget about that. Write it down, write it down. So then at the end of the year, you're kind of maybe that last week, instead of having to go through that whole process, you're basically reviewing everything and now creating those goals for like the end of the year or for the new year. I think that'd be like what works best.
Yeah. I love that. Um, has anything come up for you that you're like next year you really want to focus on more than you did this year?
I think just education wise, like stepping more into that field for myself, like in regards to leading. I think with like the Coach Connect, I think with the podcast, I think with some of these other ideas that I have that I'm putting together. There's a lot of stuff that I need to personally make, or energy wise make a shift towards. Whereas like I've always been just focused strictly on the coaching. And I think like the coaching is a huge part, but a lot of what I've been trying to focus on over the last 6 to 8 weeks was like systems in place. So like when I do get new clients, what does it look like? Email stuff like I've worked on with you. Having
By the way, I keep meaning to DM you on Sundays when I get the weekly newsletter.
yeah,
It's looking so good. Like every
yeah,
week you're improving it. I love it.
good. My sister's helped me with that, so she'll like to hear that because I've been a little bit harsh and she's she hasn't appreciated it. But yeah, I'm happy with how it's coming out. I want to add more to that. I'm actually going to be this Friday. I'm going to be launching the blog again. So I have a couple things I'm going to be writing about because I always find that writing, whether I'm a good writer or not, it just helps me kind of organize some thoughts, get things out there. So I'm going to have the first BG Perform blog back on Substack, which I'm going to try to grow that channel as well. And then, yeah, so I think like the education, stepping into that, really kind of putting more energy into that, as well as coaching, but just having some of the things I have for coaching, you know, like I was just saying, like the stuff we've worked on, having systems in place where you know, it doesn't take me hours to get people onboarded. It's just like, hey, someone wants to train, click this button, text this number, I'll set you up here, and then it's like within 20 minutes they're ready to train. And then there's the assessment, the programming, and then you just go on to the regular coaching habits from there. Then I think the other thing too is just like since I'm gonna be home, like in here and like settled, is like a weird thing that I'm still getting used to. And it's like I've been home, I think officially it was like April, May. Yeah, so it's been like officially 6 months of being home, like 100%. But the first couple months was like, taking a step back from coming from all the travel, putting my feet in the right place, making sure I had the right things in order. And then like the last 3 months was really like, okay, I'm gonna be here. Where do I need to change? How do I need to grow? Who do I need to contact? That sort of thing. So I'm really feeling like a good momentum shift into the new year for that sort of thing. I have a base here in Albany now. I have the gym that I'm training out of. I have a lot of things that I'm working on locally, trying to network a little bit more. So I guess I'm just excited to be home uh, for a full like year and not be just traveling, wherever. And I'm like really looking forward to that and seeing what the next year can bring when I'm like in the same spot that I haven't really been in like 3 or 4 years. And especially in this mindset, because I think when I was in Florida, I always knew I wasn't going to like stay in Florida. And that was always a little bit hard for me because I just didn't, I liked it there, but I missed my family. I knew at some point I was going to be back here. So just being here, being like, hey, this is the place. This is where I'm going to build it is like really refreshing and exciting to just not have that stress of like, well, where do I need to be? Like, what's next? What's this? It's just, I'm here, I'm going to build and then let life take me wherever it needs to take me and just do the work that needs to be done. And the rest of it's very simple to me.
Yeah, for sure. Are you also thinking about, because you do so many different things, obviously like with the podcast, with Coach Connect, with in-person coaching and now the blog, when it comes to content creation, are you thinking at all about uh, combining or maximizing the output next year, like as things that you want to create for Coach Connect, for podcast, for blog? Can you find synergy to where at least those themes are kind of consistent? Like I know a lot in the podcast for marketing for fitness coaches, I talk a lot about the weekly anchor and like
Yeah.
using that as a theme for your long form, but then to fuel how you create your short form. Is there a way in which you could organize your sort of quarterly plan for Coach Connect and the podcast and the blog to kind of have synergy there so you're not doing so many things?
Yeah, 100%. And that's, again, this is what the reflecting's for, because I'm, I think with some of the stuff, I'm at different levels where it's like, all right, the coaching, I'm at one level, the marketing, I'm at like a beginner level. And then there's like the blog and the Coach Connect. Like the Coach Connect is kind of just being born. So it's like just getting its legs. It's kind of like just testing things out. Whereas like the coaching is like I'm
Yeah.
totally up here with. So it's like that is I could do that in my sleep, where it's like at a very high level. Where this other stuff is just like, all right, like what do I want the blog to look like? Like I don't want the first blog post to come in and talk about like French contrast, because it's like, well, what do you like? What does that mean, right? Like I want all of this stuff to kind of create a journey for people, and I've been able to really do this with the podcast very well, because we just had like this. The one we posted today was the last episode of this season, and I think with splitting it up in that way is going to allow me to kind of like backtrack in the start of the year and go from beginning of like the coaching episodes and then the client episodes, and then I want this next season to be a little bit more in like the strength conditioning realm, a little bit more of like that higher specialized type of training and lingo and whatnot. But I think that's my next, really like my next thing is to create synergy in all of it. So it's like when I post a blog, it is about the podcast, is about the content, is about me and where I'm at in my life. And I think that I had to kind of like get some of this stuff running again, and do it in the right way, like we've talked about. And then I think that's like part of what I want to do in this new year.
I love it. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Do you wake up with just like ideas hitting you left and right every day right now?
Yeah. I mean, like, it's not like ideas, but I just like, I'm always thinking. I think that's one of like my blessings and curse. Like, my mind's always like on things. And I think another thing is just like allowing myself to follow those and not have like, you know, um, being able to follow some of that stuff and not have pressure of like one thing having to work now that I'm like home and I'm here and I can like just take a step back and breathe. Where, in these other places I was doing a lot of like unnecessary work because I just had the time. And I think like one of the biggest things I wrote down last week was just like high ROI activity, right? Like I just want to do stuff that's like going to give me a return. And that's not the only thing. Like I do stuff that maybe isn't going to give me a return right now, but obviously in 5, 10 years. But like right now, what can I do when I wake up to make sure like a day is taken advantage of for the most part. And I think that's something I wasn't doing. I wasn't sitting down and being like, all right, well, you know, I haven't reached out to local places since I've been here. So it's like I need to sit down and reach out to local places and show them who I am, show my face, have conversation, talk to people. At the gym I'm working at, there's like almost 1,000 members. It's like, the content needs to be flowing, the content needs to be consistent, it needs to project what I'm trying to say, who I'm trying to bring on, that sort of thing. And really, I think like there's been cool opportunities already, like locally from people who have just like seen me, talked to me, seen what I've done. Um, it was kind of cool the other day. I had someone come up to me in the gym and be like, "Oh, I just listened to one of your podcasts. I've been struggling getting back into the gym, and I heard the episode about like when you fall off, and it really helps me a lot." And I was like, "That's awesome. Like I'm happy. Like I'm excited to hear that." And I think that's the sort of thing where consistent work pays off. But now I think it's like that's awesome. But like how can I make that happen 10 more times? Right? Or what do I need to do to have that happen 15, 20, 100 more times? Um, because that's when you actually start to make the difference and things start to flow. And I think we've even talked about this. I think one of my biggest strengths is being able to kind of like go from thing to thing and like not really like fizzle out, but I definitely need synergy in what I do to bring the coaching and the blog and the podcast and the Coach Connect and all of that into one pot. So it's like as soon as I hit send, it's boom, like everything's covered.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love it. Well, I'm fired up because what I love is like your ability to just like what I think is the most important, make it exist and then make it better. Especially like some of these things, yeah, it does take a minute to feel comfortable, like creating your content strategy and building out all your marketing channels and deciding what platforms are the most important for you. But you're just like, okay, I'm going to start here. It's going to exist. I'm going to iterate it. And then when I feel good about this, I'm going to do the next thing. And like, you've just made so much progress in the last 6 months.
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's like you said, I, I I'm not afraid to like start it. I think that's the hardest part for most people. It's like I have to start it. I have to look stupid. I'm gonna ask dumb questions. I'm gonna have the wrong edit. I'm gonna put something out. It's gonna look terrible. And for me, it's just like I'm just gonna put it out, and like at least it's out there because I do think like something I've taken away from content is obviously there's a lot of stuff I don't have right now, and I think what helped me the most early on was like when I first opened my gym. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna have a gym. I'm gonna have all this stuff. It's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna train all these people." And I remember I walked into my first gym, like after everything was set up, and we had like 2 racks, 2 barbells, a set of kettlebells, dumbbells up to 50, an assault bike, a rower, and maybe a couple jump ropes, bands. And I was like, "Oh yeah, like I gotta make this work because like that's what I have. And it's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be exactly what I had thought it was gonna be, but like you got to make it work." And like when I kind of had to do that, then I was like, well, I wonder if it's the same thing as this. Like, yeah, I only got like a little mic, I got my computer camera, but like I'll try it, put it out there, see how it responds, see how it gets. And I know for the most part, obviously it's going to grow. And I know no matter what, as long as I'm consistent, like it's impossible for it not to be successful because I know the information I'm putting out is good. I know my personality vibes well with people. And I think more people just need to hear. But I think like the consistency is the most important thing where it's like on Monday to Friday, do what you got to do, no matter how you do it. And eventually it's going to start to click and grow and you plant those seeds, you water them, and then down the line when summer hits it, and whenever summer is, like you're going to get everything you need from it. And I think that's just been my thing right now is just trying to be patient for when it does come. and clicks in all the right way. I'm just not forcing anything or beating myself up if it's not like the speed that I thought, because part of me also is, when things don't click or things don't feel good, it's like I'm grateful because it gives me an opportunity to like fix it before I get into a position where it's like, oh, I can't fix this now, or there's like too much going on that I don't see it. So it's like you know, when I don't have the client list I want, when I don't have the newsletter that I want, it's like, okay, well, like this is good because I can improve it in some capacity. Like this isn't the best it's gonna be, because if that would suck. You know what I mean? Like it'd be like, all right, well, like if it's what I wanted, there was, or what if the very first newsletter I put out was what it was always gonna be, that'd be terrible. You know what I mean? It'd be like, well, there's mistakes, there's typos, the link's wrong, the pictures aren't there. That's not a shot at my sister. This is like talking like from the start when I started doing the newsletter. But like there's room to grow. You can get better. And that's like always exciting to me, or makes me feel sleep well at night. Where it's like, all right, well, I know I can get better. So I guess that's a good thing. And as much as I've been able to do in the time that I've been coaching with just that mindset of like, well, at least I know I can get better, is helps me get through like a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. What was the most intimidating thing about starting the podcast? And when you look back today, do you still feel like that should have been the thing that you felt the most intimidated by, or did something else come up in the process of you building and growing the podcast that was a different obstacle you weren't expecting?
I think initially, obviously, it's like that. People are gonna think like, what is he talking about? What does he know? But that kind of went away very quickly because I trusted. I I looked at it as like, because I remember early on, I had a lot of stuff kind of like changing at once, and I remember when I first stood in front of people as like a coach, I was like, oh my god, like what do I say? And I was like, just kind of having a conversation, introducing the workout, and I'm getting that like click in my throat, and I'm like, yeah, so we're gonna, and I kind of took a step back, and I was thinking, I was just like, these people are here for me. They're here because they trust me. So like I need to believe in myself and trust myself. And it was the same thing with like the podcast. I would say the other biggest thing was just like all the stuff that goes into it. Like where do I post it? How do I post it? How do I know it's good? How do I know, or how do I share it? The views type deal. But I think with all of that, like with the experience, it just becomes, with, and there's a lot of stuff out there now, like with Riverside or even this. I don't know if this is kind of the same idea, but you record, it kind of creates content for you that creates like all these systems and things for you. Where when I first started, it was like, all right, I'm gonna take this video, I'm gonna post it. Like I used Twitch, and I would record myself on Twitch, and then I would download the video, and then I would post it. Or I would do like Facebook Live, or I would do Instagram Live. And now it's just like, I use Riverside. I record the podcast. I download all the things I need, put it on my hard drive, upload it to YouTube, upload it to Spotify for creators as the other thing that I use to kind of like distribute it. But I might change that soon too. But and it just becomes simple. But I think a lot of it's just doing it, and that's the hardest part, because like once you get comfortable talking and have that opportunity, and I think like a lot of it too, if you're talking to yourself, that's a hard thing, you know. That's why a big reason why Jerry does it with me is because I just feel comfortable around Jerry. There's good conversation. There's, it's not just me
It
talking on
flows.
the mic. Yeah, it just flows. He brings the best out of me. I bring the best out of him. And I think that makes the podcast much more enjoyable. And then I think also uh understanding like what you want to get out of it, because I want that to be like a verbal journal or an audio journal. Like I want someone to kind of like, or what does Brandon think about this, or what does BG Perform say about the first 30 days of the client, or when you get hurt, or how you get stronger. And I don't want it to be like an interview thing. Like I'm not trying to have people on to interview them. I'm not trying to have people on to like learn about them. And no offense to anybody, because I am interested, but it's just like I want that. I want my podcast to be, you know, stuff that, again, like a journal of me basically like verbally saying what I believe, that people can go back to and listen. And that might change in the future. I think it's another thing too, is I've been very good about like letting things change when they need to. If something needs to adjust or something needs to grow into a different way, I'll let it go and I'll do it. whatever's best for me. But I think as long as I'm feeling good and excited about what I'm doing, then I'm continuing to do it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, you've made insane progress across a lot of fronts this year. So it's been awesome to see and inspiring to see. And I
Well, you've
remember
helped me
feeling the
with a
same
lot too.
way.
So
Well, I'm happy to help. And you've helped me too, because I remember when I first started the podcast, I was like, well, I want to participate. And, I'm asking you guys to be brave and share all of your wisdom and put
yeah,
it out there. I want to do the same thing. And I also want to be able to serve our community in a way that, I can't be on the phone with everyone one to one, but I might be able to share these lessons and hopefully it helps. So I remember sending you my first couple of episodes, like, "Hey, what do you think?" And
yeah, I
you were
remember.
the
Yeah.
same way. "Hey, it's hard to do a solo cast. Like it
It is. It
feels
really
more like
is.
you have to show up differently, right?" But
I struggled when I did the solo cast, like at the beginning. It's just like you're kind of talking to yourself and you're thinking, and then you're kind of like, and you're thinking out loud, and your mind just kind of goes, and you don't really. I get lost when I like talk to myself, and a lot of times I probably talk too much. Like my girlfriend tells me sometimes I take too long to get to the point when I'm having these types of conversations. But a lot of it is me just thinking out loud and trying to like formulate it in my head myself because I want it to resonate. I don't want it to be like junk or whatever. And I think the solo version of the podcast is super, super hard. And I just think it's the energy might not always be there. There's jokes you say, and you're not getting it. Like you're laughing at yourself. You might say something, no one's there with you. And it's like, at least when Jerry's there, it's like I can say something. He laughs and we can have that conversation. Cause to me, it's just like we're just sitting there talking, you know? Maybe the tone and obviously the other things of the podcast, but I would commend you for doing a solo cast because it's very, very hard.
it's like you said, like knowing what your intention is with doing it, right? And
Yeah.
your guys' intention is obviously to educate, but
Yeah.
also to process your own thoughts and articulate them clearly and have others benefit from that as they learn.
Yeah.
But for you to have this journal, for me, I was like, well, I want to be able to serve our audience, and I'm going to treat it like if I could create this evergreen course, if I
Yeah.
could create this evergreen marketing course where every episode is just like a digestible lesson that someone could listen to and go implement something and make a change right away, then I feel good about what's going out. So my mission is just like to make this course that is, limitless in terms of episode modules, but to give an actually executable lesson each week.
Yeah. And I mean, like, again, you're doing great. And I think like that's part of the process is understanding like, and it might change, you might have people that come on. Like I'd imagine eventually there's going to be people who reach out to you are like, hey, I use this tip and this worked. And it's like, okay, cool. Now I want to have you on so you can share it. And it's like, it might progress to that. It might not. You might just keep having those little tips and having like this sort of stuff that we do. But it's just like I think with you have enough experience to know like, is it working? Is it feel good? Is it flowing? And that's the hardest part. And like, again, if it
And
doesn't, yeah,
when you start to study podcasts that it's like it's a long game. It's a
yeah, of
slow
course.
grow. Discoverability is not as easy on podcast platforms. So I think us having the network and to be able to help each other and
Mhm.
support each other's content is a really powerful asset. Yeah, and I hope more coaches in our network decide to join in next year and like have the fun with us. And hopefully
Yeah.
we
And
can
like,
also make their road to getting live and getting a podcast out there easier because we've all been through the growing pains.
yeah, yeah. I think it's like I said, if you just enjoy it and use it for even like just a journal or just like a verbal dump of things, just do it in an enjoyable way with people that you enjoy or by yourself, whatever it is, just start talking.
Yeah,
So
100%. Well, I love that. Thank you so much for just jamming and joining us
sorry I
early
couldn't
today
be
and
here the last couple
vibing.
weeks. Had a couple things
No,
randomly
life's been
pop up.
busy, right?
Yeah, Yankees lost. I went to a Yankee game and last week was I forgot what happened last week, but something came up. But we're here. We're back.
Yes, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for chilling and have a great week.
Yes, you too. I'll talk to you soon.
See ya. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate everyone who joined us live. I'm just checking the Q&A to make sure there are no questions, but feel free to always comment on any of the previous lives or this live as it's posted, and I'll always check. Of course, when we are live with any of the coaches, always drop a question or a comment in there. I want to make sure that I facilitate you guys, if you are listening and have questions for the coaches, that you can ask them. So I think that's it for today. Thanks for joining, and hope everyone has a great week. And I will be back on Friday again with Carl doing a live recapping week 2 of the OPEX method. So stay tuned for that. I believe I already have the alert up there, so you can hit the notifications and join us for that one. But anyways, have a great day, and we'll chat soon.